I'm Cesar Delgado from Back Roads of Illinois podcast. Welcome to the show with us for this afternoon's Markets Close with Chip Nellinger out of Blue Reef Finance in Morton, Illinois. How are you, Chip, in Central Illinois today?
Doing good, Caesar. It is a beautiful fall day. Sun's been shining all day and nice and warm for this time of year. So a lot of field work getting done. Harvest is mostly over in this area. A lot of anhydrous on, and we're getting her wrapped up ahead of Thanksgiving, it looks like.
Let's start with this World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimate report on this morning. However, I talked with Kyle Bumstead in Erickson, Nebraska. We know that the report was bearish today. What is your take on it?
Yeah, it was a little bit bearish. It's probably the biggest thing was corn yields going up 1.9 bushels, 174.9. That was a little higher than expected. Now the market had sold off into that anyway. Um, they did increase corn demand by 125 million bushels, so carryout only went up 45 million. Um, so it is mildly bearish. The fact that we sold off for 2 days going into it, I don't think was I don't know if I don't know if it's what we needed for the market to push down another 30 cents in corn. Bean yields only up 0.3 of a bushel to 49.9. Carry out up 25 million to 245. Still very, very tight ending stocks on beans. And so it's going to come down to the South American growing season here. They're starting off really in horrible shape. Too very hot and dry in the northern two-thirds of Brazil. Massive historic rainfall and flooding in the southern third of Brazil. And so would not be shocked if we don't get past this report. We've digested it. It was a touch bearish, but it's still going to boil down to the size of the crop in out of Brazil, South America in particular, but Brazil specifically, and they're having some struggles here at the beginning of their growing season.
How are the grain market for today's close about this report on this morning? However, it was double whammy today.
Caesar, repeat that question. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the very end of that.
How are the grain market for today's close about this report on this morning? However, it was double whammy today.
Yeah, we didn't close very well. 7.5 lower in corn, about 20 to 21 lower in beans. The wheat market was about a dime lower. Now, everything was off its um, off its lows a little bit, except for corn. So again, I think we've seen an increase in volatility here with some big swings back and forth. I think that's going to continue. But to me, it boils down to, again, this weather forecast in Brazil, and it has been less than ideal. They're delayed on planting. It's very strong El Nino, and that's really causing some havoc for them down there. And so, in spite of it being bearish and lower closes, not sure we won't still get some opportunities going into the end of the year here.
What is the yields nearly all from the Department of Agriculture announced today on the report? Could you tell us about that?
Yeah. So again, they went up 1.9 bushels on corn to 149. I'm sorry, 179.4. That's going to end up being higher than a year ago, which is surprising. So I think that was probably the biggest bearish factor in today's report. Now, on beans, they're only up 0.3 of a bushel, so it wasn't as big an issue there. Now, the thing about those yields are, maybe the market's now saying to itself, Well, we've reversed the lower trend back to higher for yields. And we do get a report in a month for December, but they don't do any yield estimates. And then we'll get a final January report where we get the final yields. And so maybe the market's fearful they're going to continue to go up a little bit in in yields here. But you know, bigger than expected jump in corn yields, I think, is a big thing that jumped out today.
Yes, it sounded really tough.
Yeah, there's no way to spin it that there's nothing in there bearish, or I should say bullish, right? And so I think the thing about it is it already digested, with the market selling off into the report, and then they hit it pretty hard, in the first half hour, 45 minutes after the report came out. Are we getting it digested already? So I think the close tomorrow will tell us more.
And hogs markets.
Yeah, you want to talk about some volatility. We've seen some massive swings in cattle the last 4 or 5 trading sessions. A $6 plus range from low to high yesterday. The market was down sharply yesterday, came roaring back by $4 off the lows. And then today they just hit it really hard again. So about $5 plus lower in live cattle. January feeders were $8 plus lower. So massive selling pressure in cattle. The funds look like they're in full liquidation mode. The hogs held up better, roughly unchanged in the December, up just a little bit in the deferreds. So hogs are holding together better than cattle, but you've seen some massive selling the last couple of weeks in cattle. We're now, I don't know, $40 plus off the highs in feeders, and working on, I guess we're working on $25 off the highs almost in live cattle in probably less than a month's time. So big swings in the cattle market here recently.
That's great for the rancher.
Yeah, it's been an interesting November so far, and we're not even halfway done. A lot of volatility, and that's something that we haven't seen for a while. This much volatility without much real news out there. So it's maybe a sign of things to come, where we're transitioning to some much bigger swings in these markets.
Finally, this Federal Reserve does rises to the cuts for this month. Could you tell for our listeners?
Yeah, the outside markets have been flying all over as well. Federal Reserve at their November meeting here left rates unchanged. We've seen a big rally, and kind of talking that, maybe they're going to stay that way for a little while, but kind of giving an out either way that, if inflation continues to flare up, they could raise rates. But the stock market's had a really nice rally over the last couple of weeks in here. It's down a couple hundred points today. The dollar's been kind of flying all over the place. So these outside markets are definitely something that the grain markets and livestock markets are going to watch going into the end of the year. Crude oil also has had a huge drop. So kind of surprisingly, it got well under $80 a barrel and close to $75 on the lows overnight and this morning. And so I think that moved lower. It was, 2 weeks ago we were trading close to 90. So it's been a big drop in crude oil. That's probably another thing that's maybe a little bit negative to the renewable fuels, biodiesel and ethanol aspect of the grain markets too. Has been this big drop in crude oil recently.
Is there anything would you like to go to tell our listeners about the Department of Agricultural announced that the corn market is starting to come down for next year? Perhaps since 2013, what is your opinion for this announcement from the Department of Agricultural?
Yeah, we've raised a couple big crops in a row. Our stocks are slowly building in corn. Our bean stocks are higher than a year ago, but still relatively tight. So it's going to come down to the world market now, and the South American crop over the next 3 months is going to be critically important to our price levels. So I think we are in a phase where we're slowly rebuilding stocks, slowly raising big crops. But that doesn't mean there won't be opportunity out there for higher prices into the year end or first of the new year. And so I don't think it's straight down, but certainly it looks like we've turned the corner from really tight global supplies to maybe corn and beans, slowly rebuilding our world carryout. And eventually that will mean lower prices, but it doesn't mean we won't have some marketing opportunities at higher levels than what we're looking at today.
My pleasure that you joined the show for today. Thanks.
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.